Ella Harrison. Well, I'm a professional. I do this professionally.
Yeah.
Ella Harrison, welcome to Head on Fire. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you as well for having me. It's really great fun and just like seeing you face to face. And yeah, I hope you see like
I
everything okay
have
too.
I have been such a fan of your content and your platform and your book for so long, but for people who are not me that might not know who you are, tell people who you are and what it is that you do.
Thank you. I always am like the worst with introductions because I know I'm going to forget something. But yeah, my name's Ella Harrison. I started originally on YouTube, which was like, God, years ago at this point, like 6 or 7 years ago.
The years really do start coming and they do not stop coming.
No, exactly. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. And then I moved over on Instagram as well, and I dabbled a little bit on TikTok, and I was like, you know, and I was just like, TikTok's not for me. But yeah, then I wrote a book which came out. Oh my god,
And if you're watching this on
2020.
YouTube, I'm holding the book.
Yes,
It's a
I should.
beautiful. This is
Thank
a
you.
stunning book, by the way.
Thank
This
you.
is. Did you know when you signed your contract? Because obviously you don't. We don't have a clue. Like,
Mm.
is it a paperback? Is it a hardcover or whatever? Did you have any idea? Like, when did you know it was going to be this gorgeous object that I'm holding in my hands? Because this
When
is stupidly beautiful.
Okay, because I actually told them like I did everything. So in the sense of like I got so fucking can I cuss here?
Of course.
Okay. I got so fucking lucky because I basically when we signed the contract, they were like, "Okay, what do you want for like illustrations, cover? What do you want?" And I sent them over my Pinterest board. And I still have that Pinterest board. And then they were like, "Okay, cool." And then it was the most amazing thing. After I wrote everything, handed it in and everything, we had a meeting where it was a couple of my team essentially, right? I know. And we had this big Excel sheet and we went page by page and we're like, okay, for this page, what do you want? And I was like, I want birds on this page, or I want bats on this page, or on this page, I want like a girl with her hair braided and things like that. And
I
then
need
I
a
was able to
mouse in
pick,
a dress
yes,
dancing in a window surrounded by a wreath.
yeah,
That's what
like
I
I
need.
was able to literally pick my artists. They were like, okay, these are the artists that we have found for you that we think you would like this vibe that you would like.
Yeah.
And then I was allowed to pick the artist that I wanted. And then they sent me my original cover, which by the way was not that cute, to be honest. And then I was like, no, this ain't.
No one's original cover is that cute. Have I
Yeah,
ever told you? Did you ever see what the original cover for Dabbler's Guide looked like?
I feel like I faintly remembered one time that
It
you
was
shared
like
something.
pink. It was a
Yeah.
pink book. And no, not even pink. It was salmon. It was
Uh-huh.
listen, I love the book and it has gone on to have a really good life. So I this is this is not I'm very
Yeah.
happy with my book now, but boy howdy, that first cover, they were really insisting
No. Yeah.
that it should be salmon for some reason.
Oh wow. No,
Yeah.
I
I
struggled.
actually I actually redid the cover and I sent it back with this color scheme. I wanted it
Oh,
green and like sunflower yellow.
yeah.
And actually, I think I wanted it more the sunflower yellow and then the greens and stuff throughout. So this
Mhm.
was like an inverted version of the color scheme that I wanted. I didn't get that. I got blue, but I love the book now. So, but
I
anyway,
really like
sorry,
your
I
cover.
digress.
No, that's cool. I really like your cover. I in the
Well, thank
tarot
you.
card that you like kind of went with it and everything. I thought
I
that
did
was
that.
genius.
I
Yeah,
did that with
that was
my
genius.
baby Eggsy on there. Yeah, no, I had that done separately. I went to an artist that I loved, Joe Phillips, and
Ah,
he did that for me. Yeah, I really love that.
yeah. Okay, because that was genius. I remember I saw that and I was like low key kind of jealous. It's like, oh my god, a tarot card? Can we do that?
Yeah. So I did that, and so because I wanted to own the design because I wanted to be
Yeah,
able to use it and
virtually.
have
Yeah.
art and stuff available for people. And I knew that if I had the publisher do it, then they would always own that art. So I
Mhm.
wanted to own it and license it from the artist and stuff. So I took that on myself. And I knew exactly what I wanted. I drew because I'm a I dabble in art. So I drew out exactly what I wanted. I sent it to Joe. Joe and I had worked together before. I had this sounds so ugh when I say this, but I had modeled for him and he had used me as a model for one of his characters. And I really loved his work. I really loved what he did for me. So I was like, okay, I need a tarot card of me
Mhm.
as the dabbler instead of the fool. He used my dog. The dog that's on the cover is my dog Eggsy.
Yeah.
And I have that yellow hat is my
The
real
hat.
yellow hat. I have that
I
hat. It's
remember
great. I love
seeing
that.
that hat.
I love it. But I
Yeah.
mean, this is just a beautiful, it's not just a great book because you really know your stuff. It's called The
Thank
Book
you.
of Spells by Ella Harrison, 150 magical ways to achieve your heart's desire. But it really is one of those books that like I could just imagine when I was like 15 and
Mhm.
going to the witchy aisle of the bookstore and like sitting down and flipping through. Like it really just does feel like a very magical object.
Thank you.
But you know what I really love about you and your platform is you're also such a big advocate for folklorists, folklore, for talking about, as I feel like, in recent years, a lot of internet culture has gotten very curious
Mhm.
to dabble in lots of different cultures, especially as Christmas, this time of year, this winter season, I feel like as more people start being introduced to other cultures because of how ubiquitous social media is, people are like really excited to learn about different traditions around the world, especially because of all the different types of, I'm going to say the word creatures just because I don't know of a better word, creatures, beings, deities, monsters, all
Yeah.
sorts of things from around the world, mostly European, that we'll probably talk about today, but that are also associated with Christmas that aren't Santa.
Yeah. Mhm.
And that's been really really fun to see kind of grow and blossom on the internet. And you are such a wealth of knowledge of
Thank you.
that specifically. So I thought it would be a really fun opportunity today to get to just chat about where some of these traditions come from, what they look like where you live,
Mm.
which is Germany, right?
Mhm.
hmm
Mhm. Yeah.
What these look like from you, and maybe help people get a little bit inspired to bring some of this magic into their own home for the holiday season. So I guess right up front, what does this time of year look like over there for you?
Oh, I think this is honestly, I'm gonna say something potentially controversial. I was just talking about this with Leah actually too. That I think winter and like the entire like Christmas slash Yule time has kind of become my favorite over autumn. Like I know everyone's like autumn, autumn. I'm like, you know what? I think I prefer winter time because it's just so active down here, especially. I'm in Bavaria specifically. And it is really quite different down here than it is up like north or like we're very very like even within Bavaria there's like so many regional differences. It's actually kind of like astonishing sometimes to see and realize like, oh wow, you guys like name things differently entirely. But yeah, it's just such an active time for us down here with like the spirits and stuff. Like for us, especially, I know even if people always say, "Oh, the veil is thinning around Halloween time," but I feel like for us, it's usually more the Rauhnächte, which is the rough nights, I guess you could translate it to, between the 25th of December and the 5th or 6th of January, which is when the wild hunt is out and about. And you've just like, and there's just so many different pieces of folklore around this time of year, which makes sense considering that this time of year would have been where people were more likely to spend indoors around the fire and like talk about stories, right?
One of those holdovers here in the US is the lyric, "There'll be scary ghost stories and tales of the glories of Christmases long, long ago."
Yeah.
And a lot of people kind of gloss over that. But in recent years, I think we've been a little bit more analytical and interrogative of that to say, wait, why are we telling scary ghost stories at Christmas? And we kind of forget that even like Dickens' A Christmas Carol, some of the
Yeah.
most iconic Christmas
Relatives.
stories are ghost stories, and they're
Yeah.
kind of creepy and rather dark. And I think that's a really good inroad for people to start learning about some of these traditions
Hmm.
and maybe why. So maybe I guess let's ask why right up front. Why do we tell scary ghost stories around that time of year?
Well, my personal, and I mean, obviously, I've studied anthropology, and so I have a bachelor's in anthropology, and so this is just my personal sort of theory combined with what I have read and stuff, is, I mean, you have to imagine this time of year, obviously, especially for people back in the day, let's say, was a scary time period where food potentially was scarce. You know, you
Mhm.
had like higher risk of death just because of cold, and this, you know, that type of environment was really harsh back in the day, especially. And then you have the added thing of like our house, for example, is from 1770, and you still hear that. Yeah, it's really old. And it's an old farm, and like our wooden beams, like they creak at night, you know, and like you start hearing like little like mice and stuff in the attic that's right above us, and you start hearing like pitter patter, and like it's a little bit more, you know, and like you genuinely have so much fog, like it's so foggy, and it's like it kind of feels like the veil is like you physically see the veil right now, you know, and like you have just a lot of death being a topic in general too, because obviously everything outside is kind of like dying, and a lot of times, you know, interestingly enough, people actually tend to die more during this time of year too, and so you just have a lot of that kind of total, you know, like if you put that all together, I guess that must have just like really added to that sort of culture of ghost stories and death and like spirits and hauntings and just like mysteriousness too, you know?
And even, I mean, even just from a very practical aspect, you can't really go outside. People are inside. You want something to do. What do
Yeah.
you do at night? You tell stories to one another. What do we tend to tell? You know, when we're
Mhm.
around a campfire, when we're around a fire and it's dark and a little cold and a little creepy outside, what do we do? Well, we tell a ghost story, sure.
Exactly.
And it's at this time of year when we're all inside. It's winter. It's dark. The days are very very short, and the nights are very very long. And so we're all inside, and we're all huddled around a fire trying to keep warm. And our provisions
Exactly.
are low. You know, the entire world outside feels dead right
Mhm.
now. Right? You know, all the trees are, well, they used to be. Now global warming, but
Yeah,
now thanks to climate change, those
they're
leaves are hanging on a lot longer than they used to.
they're
But you
trying.
know, we had barren branches and the world is white, and we're thinking about mortality, and we're talking about ghost stories, and we're talking about what waits us out in the dark. And
Mhm.
so I kind of want to start asking about some of these creatures that have started to kind of come back into the zeitgeist of
Yes.
cultural conversation. I want to start with the first one. I think is probably the most popular non-Christmas character is Krampus.
Mhm. Probably,
What
I would say
I
so.
know that Krampus here feels fair. Like Krampus is kind of a reintroduction into the culture here. I feel like
Uh-huh.
it's very different from what Krampus is like over there. I was just watching a video that you did of the parade, the Krampus parade. Tell me about that.
Yeah, okay. So that was really fun. And so actually I took my sister and her boyfriend there, and they've never experienced a Krampus like parade or lauf or like run essentially is what it's called. And they are fun, but and that's what they were not prepared for. They actually whip. I have bruises on my legs. They don't like, it's
Oh
not even
no!
like, yeah, like they go at
Do
it.
you ever get the feeling that anybody in those costumes maybe takes it a tiny bit too far?
Oh yeah, like Lester. So I'm not sure if I wanted to like, do you edit at all?
Yeah, of course.
Can you just cut that name out?
Of course.
It's okay. So my sister's boyfriend, he's from Berlin, and he did not expect that. And I don't know. We actually were talking in the car, like if there's some psychology about like maybe his body language. They kept coming specifically at him, and they were like going at it, and we were like, "Oh, are you okay?" But yeah, Krampus is really interesting because he comes only on the 5th. Of December, really, to be honest with you, 5th or 6th of December, and it
Wait,
is
so it's not the
really
night before Christmas? Because I
no,
think that's the version that I've heard is that he
yeah,
comes like the night before and takes
no,
care of all the bad kids, and then Santa comes the next day and like is taking care of all the good kids.
no, he has
No.
nothing to do with Christmas. He's only really one night, and
Okay.
he kind of is. It's funny because that's one of those American misconceptions, I guess you could say. He is like basically Saint Nicholas can't be like fussed to do the dirty work, so Krampus does it for him. But they're very much like a little duo. And yeah, he like Saint Nicholas, which I guess Saint Nicholas is like where you have Santa Claus. That's where I'm
Uh-huh.
right. He kind of brings gifts, and I had a story when he came to my house when I was a little kid, where essentially he
Krampus
comes.
did?
No, like Saint Nicholas.
Okay.
Yeah. My parents didn't hire a Krampus guy, they just hired Saint
I was
Nicholas.
like, that's terrifying and
Yeah,
also great. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Oh, Germans
I
are
could just
all about
listen.
that,
If
like,
Krampus,
scaring kids.
here's what I know about American parents. If Krampus were a bigger deal here in the States, there are 1000% parents that would hire a Krampus to give their kid an attitude adjustment and throw that kid in a sack.
Yeah. Oh, they
I
do
just
that
know
here.
it.
Yeah, they do
What?
that here too. It's just my mom, I guess, didn't really like, bother. But because basically the Saint Nicholas guy, he came over, he had a big gold book and he knew all the like naughty things I did all year. But it is actually a tradition, especially down here in Bavaria and more in Austria, that you will have Campus like and Saint Nicholas come to your individual house. And then they do an entire scene where you have a table usually in between you, and the Campus will start like the actor obviously will try to like flip the table over and like get the kid and like scare the absolute Jesus out of the kid, and like he's got the whips and he tries to go at you, and the parents potentially will get like a slight little like nick here and there just to scare the children. Have you seen German folklore? We love scaring our children into
This
submission.
is crazy, and I love it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like we have this is a whole other topic called Struwwelpeter. It's like an old children's book. A kid sucks his thumb and his parents tell him not to, so someone comes and cuts his thumb off. Yeah,
Yes. Wait, isn't that is that a different one or is that still Krampus?
that's a different one, but like we love our like scary
Wait, who's that?
children.
Is that one of the Yule lads that does it?
No, I'm not sure. Potentially, I mean, like even Krampus technically sometimes says that he eats the children.
Uh huh.
Yeah, it depends. Like it kind of goes from like region to region. Sometimes he just whips you, sometimes he puts you in his backpack and like takes you off to like hell or wherever, and then sometimes he just like eats you. Yeah.
Love that so
Mhm.
much.
It's like
Do you
it's
have a favorite depiction of Krampus? Now, so I know over here we tend to take holiday figures and we put them into movies or TV shows.
mhm.
So that has started to happen here. Is that a bigger deal where you live? Are there any movies, TV shows about Krampus that we just should not miss? You know what's so funny is that what comes to mind immediately for me is a lot of people point to the TV show Grimm and
Mhm.
the episode that they did with Krampus as a really good depiction. Do you have one? I know that Krampus was also a pretty big figure in the recent holiday, I would say blockbuster, but it flopped at the box office, even though I loved it. Red One with The Rock and J.K. Simmons. Krampus was a big deal in that movie.
Okay.
But do you all have is are there any big Krampus movies or TV shows or anything?
You know what? Not really. And it's I kind of funny, and I wonder if this is maybe like unconscious of me. I have never seen a single American movie or show with Campus. And now I'm almost wondering, is it because I know that your depiction is so wrong that I kind of am like, oh, it's not worth watching? I
That's
don't
very
know.
fair. That's very fair. I didn't know if you'd even at least seen the the holiday horror movie that is just Krampus, where he like
No.
literally drags an entire family to hell, like kids
I
and all, like just everybody. They're all bad and they all get taken to hell.
Oh, okay. No, I have seen pictures and he looks like an evil Santa, and that's not what he is.
I love that.
Yeah,
I
he's just
love. Do you have? Are there any German films or anything that you're just like, oh well, when I want to snuggle up and think about death, I watch this Krampus movie.
Mhm. Not a specific campus, like not a campus
Or
one at
books? Are
all,
there
to
any
be honest.
books?
I'm trying to think. Not, I mean, we have the Christmas cards. So we have the Christmas cards that are super popular, like Who's from Campus, which is like greetings from campus. Um, but to be honest with you, it's funny because he seems to be more like a lived tradition rather than having really made it into like we get the US stuff like translated, but that's kind of really it, to be honest with you, because we have
Oh,
it
that's
so like
fascinating.
with the parades and everything, right? Like, because we have Krampus for the 5th of December, and then we have the Perchten, and they look almost identical for the 20, well, around the 21st. It depends on like some people, some villages do it like later, where you have the Perchtenlauf, which is almost a bigger deal here locally, or like a lot of times campus is kind of like, oh yeah, whatever, campus. The Perchtenlauf, however, you know?
Now, Perchta, that's like a giantess or a witch or somebody that the bad kid, the good kids get presents. Does
Uh-huh.
Perchta bring presents, but the bad kids get their stomachs slit open, all their intestines taken out?
Basic or no, yeah, they get like their stomach stuffed with hay and stuff like that. Yeah, or like coal or sticks.
That's
Yeah.
wild.
But
I love it. So tell me more about her.
okay, so she is an old goddess. She kind of goes, she has fascinating lore. You could make an entire like hour, 2 hour long like dissertation video on this. Frau Perchta is this old, probably, or we're pretty sure pagan historical roots goddess. And she is both hidden or shining one in translation. And she is fascinating because she's kind of really associated with both winter, but also like rebirth. So sometimes people especially know the slitting of the stomach, but there obviously also is like the other side to her. And you see that in these runs where you have the beautiful Perchta and the ugly Perchta. A lot of times it's a two-faced mask, and she runs a horde, and these horde of people or beings are Perchten, and they look similar to Krampus. They're like very horned, fur clad, claws, like scary looking and stuff. And then it goes really deep into like different lore and things like that. Frau Perchta also is really kind of connected. Like if you look at like all these different connections, because Europe has a lot of like shared where you're kind of like, oh, this feels really similar to this, and they're like really far apart. Perchta is kind of very much connected with La Befana, which is like the Italian witch that comes on the 6th of January.
Yes, I was going to ask about her because I
Mhm.
know that there's a lot of Christmas witches that are sometimes very beneficial,
Mhm.
very sweet figures. I know La Befana typically has a lot of roots, mostly in Italy. But but they have these very sweet roots, but they might have some spookier origins.
Yeah, most likely. So a lot of these things come out of the Alpine region, which again makes sense. Very secluded town people that oftentimes were so snowed in they couldn't leave, hence scary stories. Yeah, and so she also is kind of set to, and this is like a North versus South German kind of difference, or especially Austrian. Perchta or Berchta is kind of the leader of the wild hunt down here, at least. I know up north it's more Odin or Wodan, but down here it's more Perchta. And then you have this entire lore about like the Perchten and Perchta. Who are they? They are very mysterious. You can't really describe like what exactly do they even look like, because they're that kind of, like just mysterious, very like liminal. And then you have lore about like, oh, they are unbaptized children that she collects throughout the year, or like they're unbaptized souls, or it's obviously a very Christianized story of this specific lore or folk tale. But yeah, she will come. She's technically a little bit of a witch at this point, and she will come also to your house to make sure that throughout the entire year you did your spinning, and she's very connected to spinning and fate and everything, and that you worked really hard, and that now you are resting. So you're not allowed to catch up anymore. Like if you didn't do your work, tough shit. You were meant to. You get your belly slit. But she also does reward, and she also is like, she's got like, of course, not just black and white aspects to her.
Are people like, so I know that when it comes to the US, we tend to, because we like to commercialize everything,
Mhm.
movies and TV shows, we're constantly, we've always got a new movie or a TV show about Santa Claus coming out, or, related figures this time of year, the magic of Christmas and yada, yada, yada. So it feels like we're always kind of like adding to the lore of Santa, stuff about his wife, stuff about his hypothetical kids, stuff about where he lives and why it's the North Pole, and, different versions of that. And some of that feels like it sometimes becomes a part of that, myth. People start grabbing onto those pieces and then moving forward with
Mhm.
it. Does that happen in Europe? Are there modern additions to any bits of lore that get added and taken with, or do we just hold on to the old traditions?
So I think with Krampus, for example, really specifically, there was that one book a few years ago where I don't know if it was, it like, I don't remember, but it was some kind of Krampus and he was very much tied to the Nordics, and that he was Loki's son, which just completely made up. But I feel like you do see people like kind of parroting that, let's say, and it's just incorrect. But I do wonder, because that's kind of how lore obviously starts evolving. I feel like in 100 or 200 years, this might be where people are like, oh yeah, he's Loki's son, and it's just accepted lore. We'll see, I guess. But I do feel like what you do start seeing here is people trying to define and especially differentiate between Perchta and Krampus. And now you do start having like very specific regions being like, no, Krampus has two horns, Perchten have more than two horns. Or like, no, Perchten are
Ah.
like, they have no anthropomorphic features, whereas Krampus is more anthropomorphic and more devil-like. Like you definitely have that kind of evolving nature as well. And then Perchta obviously kind of becoming more like not more popular or more known, but I feel like like kind of re-emerging because Krampus has definitely kind of stolen the show a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when we were at the Christmas market yesterday, my husband and I, there's an entire booth, an entire booth from Germany,
Oh,
just about Krampus,
oh my
just
god!
Krampus. Yeah, just Krampus ornaments and stuff.
Wow.
It's great. Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Cool.
yeah, oh
Okay.
yeah. I have a ton for my house. It's great. I so okay. So let's see. We've talked about Perkta. We've
Mhm.
talked about Krampus. We've talked a little bit about Befana and some of kind of like the Christmas witches.
Mhm.
What about Gryla? That's another character that was in Red One, and I was kind of surprised because you don't normally see her in media.
Yeah, I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't know that much about that figure at all, to be honest.
It's so fun. So I always thought that it was sort of like just basically another version
Uh-huh.
of Perkta, or Perkta and Gryla just were like, two different names for the same thing. But
Yeah.
like, no, this whole other thing. Nope,
Yeah.
Gryla and her Yule lads, and then there's the
Mhm.
depiction on Chilling Adventures of Sabrina that I think people fell in love with and stuff. But
Oh, yeah. Mhm. I remember that. Yeah, I remember. I didn't like that show. But yeah, no, yeah, it's interesting because even Campus is really kind of Austrian and Bavarian, and then you
Mhm.
go up and it's like they know of him, but you'll have like Pelsmärtel and like you'll have like or Belsnickel essentially, right?
I everybody knows that because of The Office.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. But it's really interesting because you have like it's kind of like a boogeyman type
Uh huh.
figure, right? That obviously, parents have to now deal with their children actually being at home. So please behave.
So maybe even though all of these figures are definitely real, maybe it was a good opportunity for some parents to, I don't know, dress up in old rags and beat their kids.
They're like, finally. Oh my gosh.
Just
Yeah,
you've had this coming, Johnny.
exactly. Yeah. No, I feel like it is really interesting, obviously, because there's so much to it, and like they are kind of their own thing, and obviously their own unique, like they're in their own right. But there is definitely a very like a red thread, let's say, where you notice these differences and similarities, especially with the good kids gifts, bad
The
kids.
good kids gift, the bad kids
Yeah.
punishment. But a lot of these figures, the bad ones are dressed in rags or they're very furry. A lot of them are carrying different kinds of switches or a cane
Mhm.
or something to whip people with. Many of them have a sack to carry kids away. There's a lot of eating of bad kids.
Yes.
And the wearing of new clothes. That's a thing.
Yeah.
The wearing of new clothes to keep some of the
Oh.
bad ones away or something,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, you're supposed to like like present yourself in like the best way forward, right? It is curious because obviously again, even the like way that it's kind of dressed, it makes sense because that's what people had on hand, like furs,
Mm.
bones and horns and things like that,
Hmm.
these like scary looking masks that oftentimes were just like dirt smeared in your face, and then the bells are like a big thing. Like if you come to one here ever, or I think they even have these in the US now too, the bells are like so noisy, and obviously it is, and the Perchten specifically are more so to actually ward off evil spirits with their bells.
Really?
Uh-huh. So you have
They
that
kind of
going.
look like the evil spirits that you might want to be warding off.
So exactly, but it's kind of that thing where you take a little bit of the poison to, like,
Ah,
you know,
okay.
like, ward from it, yeah. And it's very
I get
interesting because
it.
this is very similar to what you have during, like, Halloween time, where you have that
Yes.
very famous sort of like, oh, or like a couple of different theories, right? But like one of them was obviously like people dressed up as scary beings to ward off the scary being.
Right.
And that's kind of what we have with Perchten just in December.
I love that. I love that. Are there any other figures that we're leaving out? I feel like there's a cat somewhere, but also I don't want you to, be forced to speak about something that's not your bailiwick. But are there any other figures that you just love that you just wish that we would talk about more that you think are so underserved?
So I will yeah, for me the Perchten for sure. Let me think. I know as soon as I'm like done talking, I'm like, oh, I forgot this, figure or whatever, right? So it depends because I know in the north, obviously, they have like the Yule goat type thing.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's
Yes.
much more like Nordic. And that's another thing that people sometimes misconceive. Down here, the Celtic culture, or like Celtic, this is more Celtic of an old ancient region. Whereas above the Danube or above the Alpine sort of like border, that's when you kind of go into Germanic and then like, that type of territory. But down here, you have a lot of like Celtic stuff. And that's why I feel like there's a lot of like similarities to certain other regions that then had those influences, of course. But let me think. I mean, you have a bunch of different folk creatures. I know a big one that is really popular now here in Germany, especially. And that one is kind of new, let's say, because my mom, for example, is like, this is new. Are those little Christmas elf looking things?
The
Um,
Yule lads, right?
I guess. I have
Yeah.
a bunch of them around. They've overtaken my house too. But there's like different names for them and everything too, right? I call them gnomes. They're not technically gnomes though. I will say I'm not that well educated on those specifically, but
Aren't
those.
they all supposed to be the so if I'm not mistaken, and I could be completely wrong about what I think they are, but if I'm not mistaken, those are the Yule lads that Gryla has, and each of them is like causes a different, very specific kind of mischief. Like one makes the milk go bad, and one makes something or other happen, and they've kind of gotten very sanitized, I would say, over the
Okay.
years. But I don't know,
Interesting.
I could be wrong. Are there any, while you're thinking about that, are there any traditions that just say this time of year to you that you would love to see get a little bit more love, a little bit, if people want to have this version of the holiday season
Mhm.
in their home? What are some of your favorite traditions at this time of year?
Ooh, okay. So we have, I feel like a lot, and a lot I think have kind of already come over to the US. Like the advent calendars have definitely
Mhm.
kind of come to you guys. Do you have the advent wreath with the four candles?
Yeah, sometimes, but more often than not, it's the actual calendar itself. I have seen that though, and I've seen that in churches.
Yeah, yeah, they tend to be more like Catholic as far as I know.
Yeah, or I want to say, I think I was at like an Episcopalian or something, like one of those that's like not Catholic, but it's like it should be.
Yeah. Then what
Not
else?
Catholic, but still very intense.
Yeah, exactly. Um, well, okay, 5th of December. So basically what happens on the 5th of December is Nicholas and Krampus come. You leave your shoes outside by the front door, though some
Oh
have
yeah, of
it
course.
next to the hearth. And then you get like chocolates and like mandarins and nuts and stuff in there. Then every Sunday leading up, you have the Advent where you light the specific candle. Now, one thing that is really different, and I'm going against tradition here right now with my Christmas tree,
I was
is
gonna say, why do you
yeah,
have a tree? I didn't
I
think that
know.
was as popular there.
Yeah, so they are there. Christmas trees are from Germany. Well, technically, interestingly enough, because I lived in Latvia, the first recorded decorated Christmas tree is actually from Riga in Latvia from the,
Oh.
oh gosh, what is it, 15th century or something like that, like really, really early, which a lot of historians actually get wrong. They always are like, oh, it's Victorian. And it's like, actually, no, it's
Ooh.
older. But people just forget the Baltics
Hot
all the
take.
time.
Hot take.
But here in Germany, the tradition is that the Christkind, oh, good point, that's another figure, there we go. Sometimes things are so obvious that I forget them. The Christkind, which is very Bavarian as well, or Southern, she comes. She's this angel, and she brings our. We don't really have Santa Claus. She comes on Christmas Eve. She brings the tree all
Now, is
decorated.
she the one that wears the wreath, or is that in France or something that I'm thinking of?
I think that's Norway, and
Okay.
that's a different one, different time.
Okay.
But Christkind, she's like a literal angel. Here, I have a straw one.
Aww.
Yeah, she's like a literal angel. She comes, and so because you, oh gosh, I'm sorry, I'm like all over the place.
No,
On the
please.
on the 5th of December, the tradition is okay, you wait for Nikolaus, but also what you do is you write your wish list. And that wish list, Nikolaus passes on to the Christkind. The Christkind then on Christmas Eve brings the tree and drops off the presents. And you hear that she was there by the ringing of the bell. And that's when you're allowed to come downstairs into the living room. And that's when
Wait,
all the
wait,
gifts.
wait, 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 wait. So the tree doesn't go up until Christmas Eve?
Yeah.
That is a busy angel. That is a very busy angel because that is a lot to do
Yeah, it is. That's
for
kind
an
of
angel
yeah.
after it. For all the kids that are listening, I just need you to know that the angels in your lives are very busy after you go to bed.
Yeah, absolutely. No, exactly. Not even like not even like after you go to bed in the afternoon, because we have our like Christmas is on the 24th. We don't care about the 25th. The 25th we don't care. That's when you chill. The
I love
24th
that.
is where it's at for us.
Okay.
If you go to church, you go to church. One dedicated person tends to stay at home. That obviously
To
then
let to let the angel in.
exactly. And
Yes.
exactly. And then when you come home, you usually tend to hear the like ringing of the bell. And then essentially you have, in my family, it was that the Christkind brought the tree, brought the presents. We go unwrap our
So
presents.
Santa doesn't bring presents in Germany.
Well, in the north. In the north.
Santa said F them kids in the South.
Yeah, because we
Santa
have
said
an
F them
angel.
kids.
Well, they had to split. It's just such a huge country. They had to split it up.
See, this is what I've always wanted. The movie that I have always wanted, the film franchise or TV show or whatever, if we're going to do it about winter season, I don't want Santa as like the guy who has to
Yeah,
go all over the world. I want Santa as one of many, many figures who has just like regional domain.
yeah,
And I want him to be like equal to like all like the angel and the Italian witch and
yeah.
the weird giantess lady and the Yule lads and the French angel girl
Yeah,
and American Santa in his cowboy boots or whatever. Like that's what I love. I
yeah.
love how all of the and I love how just so regional it is. It's like, well, here he comes this day, but over there Santa said F them kids. I
You
love
know
that.
what it is? We need, so basically, obviously, Pirates of the Caribbean, where they have
Of
all the
course.
different regional, like the
Yeah, yeah,
pirate,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that we need, but like the gift
Yes.
bringer.
I would love that. And
Yeah.
that's why I really liked Red One. But I'm going to digress. I was the only person on earth that liked that movie.
I'm gonna have to Google it because I've never even heard of it.
It was a giant it was supposed to be like the Avengers but Christmas and it flopped and my husband and I adored it and I was like, "Oh,
Oh,
this is going to be great. Everybody's going to love this." And then I went on
oh.
social media the next day and it was like, "This was terrible. It's a box office bomb. This is the worst movie
Mm,
ever made." And I was like, what,
okay,
am I on drugs?
okay.
Is this what that feels like?"
Oh no. Okay, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, there are some movies. I have the opposite where I watch a movie and I'm like, this is awful, and then obviously all the reviews come in and I'm like, are we watching the same movie?
oh well,
Um,
there's entire giant pieces of culture that I don't think I think I've seen one Fast and the Furious movie and they've made like 20 of them. So
yeah,
there's a lot of pieces of culture. I don't watch football games, for example. That's big here. There's a ton of pieces of culture I just don't partake in.
same. Yeah, same. But yeah, back to then Christmas
Okay, so we've got
Eve.
an angel. She
Uh-huh.
comes on Christmas Eve.
Mhm.
She puts a tree up and leaves all the presents. And
Mhm.
Santa is basically just your hookup. He brings you a little chocolate on the 5th.
Mhm.
And then you get the angel who comes later, which I love that. I wish we would do that here because I have people saying, "Hey, I need your Christmas list all the way into September." And I'm like, "No, I will give it to you. I will give it to you when Krampus and Santa come by. I will give it to you
Yeah,
then." And then he will tell the angel. And if the angel wants to tell you what my Christmas list is, then
exactly.
that's how that will work. I
Exactly.
this is a better system.
And also,
And what I like is that it's a team effort.
yeah,
It's a whole team of
exactly.
people.
And that's
Yes.
another thing that is kind of important. So at least with my family, we actually said thank you to our parents because they were the ones, like my mother never said, oh, there's this like factory where all these gifts are made, because then you have kids being like, they're imagining the most crazy
Mm.
ideas for gifts, and then the parents are like, well, I can't, like that doesn't exist. Whereas for my family, at least, it was always like my parents were the ones, or everyone, was the ones, like my father's over in New Zealand, the angel just like picks it up and brings it, and then you still say thank you to your mother or to your aunt or to whoever actually like gave the gift, and the angel is like this big collector, and so you've got that.
So everybody gets the gifts,
Yeah,
but the angel basically is the postal service,
yeah,
is the
exactly.
Christmas postal. I kind of like that better because it's very much a team. There is still Christmas magic involved.
Yeah,
It's still Christmas magic, but there's not as big of a bubble burst,
yeah,
you
exactly.
know, in 10
Exactly.
years.
And I think it keeps children a little bit more like, not upset when a child gets some like PlayStation and they don't get,
Sure.
So I think that was, at least for me, that was a good experience to have that. And then you have dinner. And yeah.
I love Chris. Tell me all about the Christmas food. I must know about all the traditions.
Okay. So down here, especially down here, we have what is called raclette and fondue.
Yeah, girl, listen, we have raclette and fondue. I know what cheese is.
Okay. So we love that.
She's like, listen, Ella Harrison was just like, okay, I know that you Yanks don't understand, but we have cheese. Have you heard of cheese?
Yeah.
And listen, did you know that you can heat cheese up and then put it on bread?
Yes.
Listen, you pathetic Yanks don't understand the power of melted cheese.
No, but not only that, we actually have this thing where you have like a pot of oil and then you have got little pieces of either meat and like shrimp and then you put them in too, right? So you're
Yes.
welcome for like bringing this over to America. You're welcome. And so that's what my family does. But then obviously I know that there are certain dishes that are very traditional, which is like goose and duck and fish.
I have had exactly one Christmas goose in my life. And I think it's kind of like turkey, just in the sense of like, are we just doing this because it's tradition? Because does anybody actually like this? People can't be doing this because they like it.
Yeah. I've never had turkey in my life.
Don't.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
not it.
for Thanksgiving this year, it's very traditional at Thanksgiving to have a turkey in the US.
Yeah.
And my family this year decided we're doing a beef tenderloin. And that was a superior Thanksgiving option. We still had all the sides. Most everybody prefers all the side dishes at Thanksgiving anyways.
Exactly.
All of your various potato dishes, all of your various, the very rich, indulgent side dishes that you typically have at some kind of harvest festival to use stuff up and use things, that aren't going to survive the winter. But, these really rich, indulgent dishes, that big, fatty meal as we go into the holiday season, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
And that, but yeah, then we chose turkey, which is it's not known for being a very flavorful bird. It's
dry,
just known
right?
for being an American bird.
Yeah.
It was actually, fun fact. This is not exactly an unknown fact, but fun fact: it was almost the national bird instead of the bald eagle.
I was about to say.
Ben Franklin lobbied very, very hard to get the turkey to be the national bird, and honestly, I think we would have been a better country had we wanted to be turkeys instead of eagles.
So, has anyone ever tried eating a bald eagle for Thanksgiving?
Well, that would be a federal crime.
Oh, okay.
So no. Also, another thing about bald eagles, everybody thinks they sound wrong.
Yeah.
The sound that they make that people think of as the bald, like that bald eagle cry, is actually the cry of a hawk that they always have to overdub because the bald eagle sounds so silly. And I just think that is the most American, that's the most United States thing ever, is we picked a bird that sounds like a frickin' dork when it opens its mouth, so we dub it every single time.
I feel like it really does summarize.
It's very us. It's
Yeah,
very our culture where
yeah.
it's like, listen, that's how that sounds. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. Now it is.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of the things that, especially like growing up in, I kind of moved around a lot, and everyone, I remember there was this kind of like shift going from America is so cool. We want to go to America to, you know what, maybe not. The more we learned about it, the more we were like, you know what?
Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah.
know that you just got married.
Mhm.
Congratulations. But if
Thank
you
you.
need another husband or two, my husband and I would be very happy to marry you and live there.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I feel like Germany is, I feel like very cool, but you know, I know that certain people have like very big issues with the lack of cereal options, for example, or like I don't know.
Well,
Yeah,
we have a lack of a healthcare option, so I'll take cereal. I'll
yeah,
take cereal scarcity all day long.
yeah, and
That's
we have
fine with me.
Krampus. Yeah,
And you have Krampus, which is better.
exactly. Yeah,
Oh, goose. We've got goose. Sorry, let me get back to the topic at hand. We've got goose.
yeah.
Any other like traditions that we do that we love?
Let me think. The thing is, I also had, because my dad is from New Zealand and very English and stuff. So sometimes I have to like be like, okay, no, this is British, this is the German. Because then I remember things from my childhood, and it's like, no, like for example, the lucky bone from the chicken
The
and stuff like that.
wishbone. Mhm.
Wishbone, thank you, or like the crackers, but that's all probably more British. In Germany, what we have is a chocolate. So we have like a three-stage fondue. We have the meat, we have the cheese, and then we have like chocolate where we dip like
Oh,
blueberries or mandarins. Good point, mandarins. What do you call them? Clementines, I think, the little ones, or
well,
like
clementines and
cuties.
mandarins are two
Don't you
different
guys
oranges.
call them cuties?
Oh, well, that's a brand name
Oh, okay.
for a type of orange. But yeah, clementines and mandarins are two different types of. But yes, teeny tiny little oranges and other citrus fruits are
Yes.
big at this time of year because it used to be very hard to get them. So it was a novelty to get an orange at Christmas, and now it's very easy to get them, most especially because of climate change.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
but we just kept doing it.
Exactly. And then in Germany we have Glühwein, which is like hot wine.
I always want to love this, and I hate it so much.
Oh no, maybe you've not had a good one.
No, see, listen, I'm not really a big wine drinker, and making it hot doesn't make it better for me.
Okay, so it's not like, okay, so the thing is, it's very much like spices in there. Like it's basically just like barely any wine, and then orange juice, usually spices, like
Maybe
different
if I could
fruit.
drink it cold. Maybe if I could drink it like a punch, maybe that would be better. It's never been my thing. It's
Mm,
never been my thing. I know that's bad. But
mhm,
my mother-in-law from Mexico makes a punch, and I have no idea if this is actual Spanish or if this is like anglicized, like Spanglish.
mhm.
But she always said, ponche. There's like saffron. Literally starts with a
Oh.
big thing of water and just starts adding fruits and spices and like saffrons in there and cinnamon and citrus and all of this stuff, and it just is like slow cooked and turned into the most amazing punch you've ever had in your entire life.
Ooh.
But there's no wine in it, but I feel like that's about as close to the experiences I'm ever going to get. But for some reason, that little bit of wine in there, all I smell when you heat it up, all I smell is the alcohol, and I just don't like it. It's a me thing. It's a me thing. It might be psychological. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
you need to try Kinderpunsch.
What is that?
Kinderpunsch Kinderpunsch is the solution to all your problems. Kinderpunsch is the child,
I
because you know, children so
I could use the solution to all of my problems.
it is what essentially you give children, because so in Germany, we're weird with alcohol and children. So our laws are strange. At 16, you're allowed to legally drink beer and anything over 7% or under 7%, I think. So wine, beer, all is that's okay with 16, right? Now, you're allowed to drink at 12, 10, 13 as well in the supervision of your parents.
Okay.
So, for example, at the Oktoberfest, if you go with your parents and you're 13, you're allowed to drink a beer. That's fine. No one
Sure.
cares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of
Um,
course.
and so what we do have is Kinderpunsch, which is essentially Glühwein or like mulled cider wine, I think it is. One sec. Chip wants to go on his chair. But it's just fruit like juices essentially. It's like without the alcohol, and it's
That would
delicious.
be me. I would love
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
That would be me.
yeah, exactly. Or like if you're pregnant, for example,
It's
um,
me. I'm pregnant.
there
Hi.
you go, perfect. So that's for you, exactly. So that is something that you probably would really like then.
Probably. Yes. I love that. Yule logs? Do we do a Yule log where you are? Or is that north as well?
That's more north, which I
Okay.
actually experienced and was so cool in Latvia because, and my husband is Latvian, and they did that in kindergarten and everything. Like they're very, very, they were actually Latvians and Lithuanians were the last pagans of Europe. And Jakob Grimm writes about them in the Teutonic mythology, and he actually says that the countryside folks most likely retained a lot of that paganism because they only were like Christianized in like the 15th century, that they retained a lot of that even going into the 1700s. And they still have that, like you can kind of feel it and see it, and they have the Yule log. That was really cool. But down here, not quite so much, to be honest. I feel like it is coming more so due to like the neo-pagan sort of,
The,
stuff.
the globalization
Yeah,
of Americanized paganism.
yeah. And so if you go to our grocery store, you can now get the Advent wreath, and you could
Okay.
also get like a Yule log version of that.
Now, is the Yule log version? Oh, and you just have the candles in it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. See, I had one of those that I had for my table, just like
Mm-hmm.
a log with the four candles, and I had that for my table. But then I also try to burn. Do you all do anything for solstice for the longest night? I know that there's a lot of different traditions about longest night where you try to like, light all the candles in your house and you stay
Mm-hmm.
up and read, or you stay up and tell one another stories or something like that. Does that mean anything for you all there?
That's usually when you have the Perchten run down
Okay.
here. So I'm going to the one that is on the 21st of December, and it's in Salzburg, um, and which is in Austria, of course. And because it's not as commercialized and kind of gentrified as the Munich one, like the Munich one is overrun. As I say this, the Salzburg one is probably going to be awful next year. But yeah, the Salzburg one, it's basically going to be the Perchten that come on that time. So that's, I think, kind of when we start having like that liminal theme going on again. However, it is interesting because not every German will know about it, especially if they don't really move in the circles of like traditions. And I will say this about Germany, it is kind of interesting because a lot of these traditions have sort of kind of had like a slow death and they're kind of
Oh.
reawakening now. Um, but a lot of people will still not know about it. And unfortunately, and that is a different topic too, you kind of see that even with our like witchcraft. Like if you look at any sort of like witchy sort of store or section, it's the most cultural appropriative, like just everything. There's a dream catcher here, and there's like a even evil eye from like Greek Turkish, and then you
I
have
had
like
the
incense and
privilege of speaking with
stuff.
I had the privilege of speaking with the owner of Treadwell's in London. It's one of the oldest
Yeah,
occult
I
bookstores
love
in
them.
London, one of the oldest in the world. But she said, it the globalization of Americanized spirituality has really transformed even conversations in Europe. I mean, suddenly she said, suddenly people were asking me for white sage, and I'd never heard of whites. Like I didn't even like that
Yeah,
has no foundation. There's no basis for that in Europe. Like that's not a thing here. And suddenly I was being inundated with requests for that. And suddenly I was being inundated with requests for, all sorts of things that really had no basis in any kind of European
yeah,
spiritual tradition or anything like
yeah,
that. So it's kind of wild to see how American culture, even as niche as American paganism, American spirituality, American witchcraft, American occultism, has spread out throughout the world, thanks in large part to publishing and social media,
yeah,
and really affected those conversations everywhere. It's
for sure.
wild.
On that note, because we're just talking about white sage, and I think one tradition that is quite strongly coming back, and that is the one and only one that you will see a lot of German books on, is Rauhnächte, these rough nights, which is
Mm-hmm.
where we essentially purge and cleanse everything, our stables, our households, and usually you have an assortment of usually traditional herbs that you put all together and stuff, and then you burn that for these 12 nights, which I think is where you get your 12 nights of Christmas from in
Hmm. Hmm.
America,
Hmm.
probably.
Yes.
But yeah, that is from the 25th of December until the 6th of January. And that's usually the most liminal time for us. But that's the Rauhnächte are like really becoming a big thing in Germany again, to the point where we have like Rauhnächte calendars, like kind of like an Advent
That's
calendar.
fun.
Yeah, and then you open a door and it's a different incense blend, and then you burn that per day. And then like every day has like a different, like this one is for prosperity, or this one is for like, you know,
I want to do that.
yeah.
That sounds great. I could
So
use 12 days of purification.
exactly, yeah. So that's becoming like a big thing, and like you see a lot of books and stuff like that being kind of written about Rauhnächte, which I think is like us kind of actually trying to like go back to like some folk traditions. Yeah.
I love that. Well, Ella Harrison, you have been so very generous with your time. And I don't want to keep you because there is quite the time difference between here and Germany. But through the magic of the internet, we get to spend all of this time together. One, if there is just one tradition or one holiday figure, one little wintertime activity that
Mhm.
people, if somebody that listens to this show is wanting to reintroduce that wintertime, Yuletide, winter solstice, Christmas time, old world magic into their lives, into their homes, what's one little thing, one little being, one little tradition that maybe they could start that can kind of give them that holiday magic back that you think is maybe a little underappreciated, a little underknown, but has been become very special to you?
Yeah, I would probably say the Rauhnächte if you look it up, because there's so many different things that tie into it. Because that's when you have Perchta coming, and then you've got the tradition of during that time you will put out some food for her that she likes to eat, but she doesn't like certain foods, so that she doesn't slit your belly. And like the Perchten and stuff like that kind of come
If
during this
she slits my
time.
belly, could she just take out a couple pounds and then sew it back?
I know, right? I wish. Like all those Christmas cookies are like,
Yeah, I'm just like, could you just take out the
mhm,
meal I just had and just
honestly.
overdid it just a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, but probably just if you look it up, if you look into the Rauhnächte, there's a lot of folklore there, which I think is going to be like a little bit of a snowball effect that I think will lead people into like, oh, this is cool. I could, because it's one of those situations where it's like a whole rabbit hole that you can then dive into.
Is there what is your favorite
Mhm.
figure from this time of year, and what's the scariest one?
Okay, honestly, probably I would say probably Perchta. I know people are like, "Oh, Krampus," but I feel like Perchta is the scarier one because
Mm,
she is so ancient and she doesn't have the same moral compass as us.
I
And
was gonna
Krampus,
say she really seems like she doesn't give a fuck.
yeah, because
She
Krampus,
really.
he's just chained, right? Like if you look at all these postcards, he's always chained to Nikolaus. Like he's kind of kept to the cycle.
Oh.
I mean, then again, if he breaks free, I don't know. But like, I would say probably
I
Perchta.
gotta say, being chained to Santa sounds like a little bit, just a tiny little bit gay. It just sounds like a
Oh,
little gay. It just sounds just a little gay.
it's
It's
just
just
these
all I'm
two
saying.
men.
I
They
feel
come
like
over. Yeah.
Santa and Krampus are in a, very special relationship involving whips
It's
and
that
chains.
Krampusy. It's that Krampusy. Yeah. Oh my god, he's gonna haunt me for saying that.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yep, yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. If people
Right.
would love to find more of you on social media, where can
Mhm.
they do that?
Okay, so I have a Patreon, which is a good avenue for obviously supporting any creator that has a Patreon. And then, of course, my YouTube channel. I have a video coming about Perchta and Campus and kind of the differences and stuff. And then, of course, my Instagram. And then I also have,
And those are just at Ella Harrison.
yeah, exactly. Everything is just at Ella Harrison. I was really early with
You're
that.
so lucky.
Yeah, it was like because I was so early. I was like, yes.
Some of us have very common names, and we couldn't get our name, so we had to
Oh,
pick other names. It's
yeah.
very dumb.
Yeah. And, and it's interesting because sometimes I'm like, oh, should I have gone with like something like witchy or something?
Oh, I
Um,
did that for a long time, and eventually I got is not no. Eventually, you get tired of it. You do.
yeah,
You
exactly.
do.
And I have horrible memory. I know, like, I would probably be like by accident,
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah. It got very tiring, 13 years of going, no, don't say that.
Yeah,
No, edit this.
yeah,
Yeah. It's very,
exactly.
yeah, no, that didn't work for me.
Mm-mm.
And the book is The Book
Yes.
of Spells by Ella Harrison. It is a beautiful object. Do you have anything in the works right now?
Let me think. Only one project, but it's not really witchy, and I haven't announced it yet or anything like that. It's like completely different. But witchcraft, not really,
Well,
to be honest.
when you announce it, I hope you'll come back and let me interview you about it, whatever it
Ooh,
is. I'm
okay.
excited. I don't care. I don't care what it is. I'm
Yes,
very excited. I'm a big fan. Big
thank
fan.
you. Yeah, it would be great fun. I mean, it's like a completely different niche, but yes, it would be really fun.
I write poetry, nonfiction, and young adult fantasy. Believe me, I get it.
Yes. I'm so excited for that like, is that novel about like the Appalachian, like witchcraft, by the way?
Yeah, Verity Vox and the Cursified. Did I send it to you? Do you want it? I'll send it to you. I will
I
literally send it to you
Yeah, I
today.
want it.
Oh my God. Yes, I will send it to you. I will send it to you as soon as we're done recording. It'll be
Thank
in your
you.
inbox.
Yes.
Of
Oh my
course. Of
gosh.
course. Well, Miss Ella Harrison, thank you so much for introducing us, reintroducing us to kind of an old world German Christmas, German winter magical time. For anybody who's ever just been a little bit curious about where some of these traditions come from and some of the spooky creatures that are waiting for us in those liminal spaces in the dark of night as we tell our scary ghost stories. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I know I probably am like the most rambly all over the place person, but it was great fun and I really, really enjoyed it. And I could technically go on for 3 more hours, but yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you as well.